Well, hey everyone. Thank you for attending today's homecoming. Hopefully some of you caught the council meeting as well this morning. A lot of great discussions, but just wanted to give a real quick update on some of the wild rice work we've been doing and just our Environment and Natural Resource Department as a whole. If you haven't had a chance to hear a little bit about kind of our initiatives there on the natural resource side. So I'll just start by introducing the Environment and Natural Resource Department. Probably, I think last summer or summer of 2020, we passed a resolution on tribal council to establish the tribe's Environment and Natural Resource Department. So it's made up of 5 appointed commissioners that assert our sovereignty over our various land, air, aquatic resources. And the goal of this department is to ensure that we have a voice at the table in all decision making that's going on at the state and federal level, and that we're consulted with on these matters. We have a chance to comment on things like environmental impact statements and be formally consulted. And so that's kind of how our efforts originally started. We've got a variety of perspectives that are represented currently from our commissioners. We have folks that have worked in forestry, radiation protection, fisheries and watershed management, a little bit of everything. And so that's just a little bit of background and context on the Natural Resource Department. But fast forward to earlier this year, through some ongoing discussions that others on council have been having with the Native Nations Partnership at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, we started talking about this idea of wild rice restoration and trying to find an opportunity for graduate students to get involved on a resource management issue. And so for us at the time, wild rice seemed like something that really captivated us. Within our tribe and of course others in Wisconsin and the upper Midwest, wild rice is a really important resource. We have stories within our nation of folks that historically harvested wild rice within the Lake Winnebago system. And so we started setting out to form partnerships and find some project goals that really seemed to make sense in terms of thinking about restoration. And so as I mentioned, we started meeting with the University of Wisconsin and a couple of graduate students, and Dr. Jesse Conaway, who is out, I believe, on Lake Winnebago right now with some students actually doing some sampling work, doing core samples and some water quality monitoring. But so we started talking about this idea of how could we get elders and youth involved? How could we do some scientific work and walk away with a restoration plan? And so ultimately, we started thinking about putting together something like a habitat suitability plan and just trying to figure out where are our best opportunities so that we could wrap up this project and have a roadmap to restoration. So we then took this idea to our partners at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They've started to consult with us on a number of different natural resource matters. So we naturally started talking that up. They were interested and started offering their equipment, their boats, everything to help with that. And so we've been progressing through the spring. We've been meeting with all of the other Wisconsin tribes to talk about this project. There's a lot of interest in this, not just from us, of course, but our partners at Oneida, our Potawatomi, everyone else around the state. There's a lot of interest. And so we've been trying to progress this with a small team that's going to continue to work on it. And we've also been engaging with our other local nonprofit partners around the Fond du Lac area, the Lake Winnebago watershed. So the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance being one of the big partners who's already done a little bit of wild rice work. And so through that, we put together a grant proposal to the University of Wisconsin Sea Grant program. So that's federal funding that comes from the National Oceanic and Air Atmospheric Administration. And basically what we set out to do was to have a project that tried to blend traditional knowledge with Western science. So trying to collect a lot of that traditional knowledge, those historical perspectives from tribal members and elders. We wanted to, of course, set out to restore the aquatic community. So thinking about wild rice, but also the waterfowl that utilize that habitat, and realizing that things that benefit wild rice are also beneficial for fish and a lot of our waterfowl resources. We wanted to come up with a strategy that helped to engage both elders and youth. So as I mentioned before, a key component of this project is to engage elders, hear those stories, and have interviews. And that's something that we're looking for help on. So if you have any stories or history in your family, either personally or others, that historically harvested wild rice in the Lake Winnebago watershed, we'd love to hear from you. We're trying to conduct interviews. And then finally, we just wanted this to all work into ensuring that we have tribal voices represented in water governance in the Lake Winnebago watershed. And so With all those things in mind, we put together a proposal sponsored by the University of Wisconsin Sea Grant. And we just found out that we were awarded a pretty substantial amount of funding that will go through the university, but it will also support our nation in terms of trying to provide honorariums to elders. It'll also allow us to provide paid internships for students to get involved. To be going out and doing actual water quality monitoring work, doing some core sampling throughout the lake system. And then we're hoping that we can start to put some of that information together into a GIS model and do a habitat suitability analysis and walk away from this 2-year project of having a map to pinpoint where are habitat conditions best, where's the water quality going to support wild rice, and then we could move this to a phase 2 to actually do restoration and planting of wild rice to supplement what's in there. So we're really excited, like I said, and if you were at the council meeting earlier, you heard that we've got a group of graduate students out there right now that are going around the lakes, and they will be later today as well. They joined us for community meal and just getting to learn more about who we are last night. And so just really excited to continue this partnership with University of Wisconsin, all of our other tribal partners and the nonprofits, but it's been encouraging to see how state and federal agencies have also been involved and have started to engage with us. And so just really excited. If you're curious and want to hear more, you can always contact me. I'll put my information in the chat. You can also talk with Jessica Ryan, Skip, or Chairman Fowler. All 3 of them are represented in our work group relating to wild rice. And then my call to action would just be, again, think if you or any others in your family ever took part in harvest of wild rice. We want to hear those stories and try to blend that. So I'll take time if there's any questions. Otherwise, like I said, I'll put my contact info in the chat and would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. It's great to hear about that project. Next up is a little bit more greeting time. And hopefully, Raven, can you hear us? Raven here in the center. Oh, interesting. Roger has a question for you, Seth. Just from Wisconsin, I've done some harvesting in Minnesota.
We'd love to hear any of those stories, Roger. We're most interested in Lake Winnebago just to get historical perspectives on where that harvest happened. But I think we're all also just interested in general and thinking about wild rice as a whole. We've got, our ideas on what it takes to establish great habitat, but, just hearing those perspectives of harvest in general, I think is valuable. So by all means, please, let's connect and see how those perspectives might be able to help enhance the work. And for whatever it's worth, I'll just point out that we do have a few spots where we observed wild rice still growing in the Winnebago pool system. Back in June in one of our boat tours with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we observed it in a couple of different spots. So really, really excited to see it still persevering and excited to see where it takes us.